All right, welcome once again to our April check-in for English language development. And we'll go ahead and get started. As I was saying, we've got lots to share with you today. So I'll get my screen to advance. Where's my arrows? There we go. So as always, our community agreements, nice little quote at the bottom, being a student is easy, learning requires actual work. William Crawford said that, as isn't that true? If we're going to be a student and learn something, that takes a little more effort. So today's agenda, again, welcome. We're going to look at a few really quick WIDA updates. They're doing quite a bit. A few DESE updates and resources, some PD opportunities, and then a presentation I did several years ago called Some Language Experiences in Language That Work, that I went back and revisited and reworked and checked the links and everything, and I wanted to share that again with you today. So our commitments from our blueprint, the shared responsibility for English learner success, asset-based teaching and learning, effective, well-prepared educators with high standards for ELs and the resources they need so that we can have meaningful and rigorous learning opportunities that build on their assets and provide them with academic and linguistic supports. Those are the areas we're going to be looking at. And then you can find that blueprint for success on the ELD webpage. And I put the link down here at the bottom of the page for you as well. All right, some WIDA updates. We have several. They've been busy. They have a new web page on revising access. And I've provided the link there that tells you all about what they're doing to the upcoming changes for the access tests that are going to be occurring. Then there's some information there about the access field test observations. They went and observed more than 50 administrators in 5 different states. There are a few asks. If you are a test administrator, please take the field test feedback survey and then return your field testing materials as soon as possible. And then they will release a PDF of the alternate can-do descriptors soon. Then SSR and DSR file layouts are coming. Those will be for your Access 23-24 and the alternate. So those are coming soon. Kindergarten Access Cognitive Labs, they will take place at selected sites this fall. They've been recruiting April and May. They'll be reaching out to folks who signed up to participate in that kindergarten access event. And then there's a chance that they may ask your help later on for some recruiting. Then in May, WIDA will have some webinars for local education agencies about the WIDA AMS and DRC Insight updates. They'll also be having one on alternate access so this has to do with alternate access and access training courses that you do to prepare for administering the access test. They will not be available from June 30th to August 31st. They're doing an update, revising them, adjusting the platform. So those will be down and you won't be able to do any training between those dates. Like, I'm sure all of you want to get that done in July and early August, but you can't. So just be aware of that. And they'll be sending out communication early in May to let you know when it'll be up again and ready to go. So just be aware of that. So don't worry about if you go to do it and it's not there and you can't find it. They're working on it. October 4th is the earliest date that they will release the alternate access reports. So those ones that you're just completing, that's the soonest they can get those out. They're waiting, to finalize the windows, testing windows, and determine the best report delivery dates for all the states. And then WIDA's alternate access is the new name of that assessment. And in the future, our access test is just going to be called that, the access test. It won't be 2.0 or web or anything. They're just going to be calling it the access test from here out. And then for access 1 through 12 and kindergarten, their name change will coincide with the release of the new assessment, which will be in 25-26. So we have that to look forward to in the near future. And then all states have completed their testing for 3/23 was the last date, and 3/31 as of the end of day. This is how many students tested. Over 200,000, 2 million students in our United States. And I think that's just within the United States took that access test. So quite a few students that they have to grade now. So that's part of why it takes us a while to get those results. All right, some upcoming milestones. In summer 2023, they revised the scoring rubric, and they'll try that out in winter of 2023. The K-Access Cognitive Labs will be going out at select site, as I said a while ago. Access will do a paper field test in Florida only, and then an online embedded field test for year 1, and a cave access pilot at selected sites throughout the US. Then the revised writing scoring rubric will be tried out in some sites in summer of 2023. And if you want to know who's involved, it's going to be educators from across the consortium and some DRC raters. And they're doing it to understand how users of the new scoring rubric will use it for scoring, and it will help them define the new rubric in the future and how we're going to use it. Here's kind of a timeline of what's going to happen. There's no changes to their original plan. It's going as they had planned. Everything's right on target. And again, 25-26 will be the release of that new access assessment. So 2026 will be our standard setting, and the release of new score reports will be like our baseline for the new access test. So the revised access for kindergarten, again, cognitive labs will be September to October 23. That's going to be select places throughout our consortium. And they're trying to figure out how the new test is going to work with students and get an idea of how they can score it and what it's going to look like. And they'll be doing test pilots in January, March of 24. And again, select people throughout the consortium to gather that data that they'll need to make those final adjustments. There's also, there are also coming some new changes to the data management and test management site on DRC. For example, there's the back and next buttons have moved to the top left of the screen. There's a new magnification and color contrast option. And the test administrators will need to look at it and become familiar with it so that they can help the students. So that will be part of the new training. Here are some more of what's going on with the new applications. They'll have a new import management, student management, and test management will have a little bit of change. Nothing drastic, but some additions that they felt would be really good for the user end. All right, access score report resources. These are some things that they want you to check out. Your Access EL parent letters are available in 49 languages now. And then they have a report that's understanding your child's scores. And there's even one for the alternate access. And there are these interpretive guides for the score report that you can use with your colleagues. So if you want to share this with a classroom teacher, those are available. And then they're going to have a recording, or they already have a recording that's on demand that you can watch, post-test interpreting score reports. And you can find those in the secure portal. Right. And the last thing for WIDA is WIDA's 2023 conference is going to be open for registration on May 8th. So I've provided you with the links, and they're giving away registration to attend through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So you can log on to their sites at each one of those and enter for a chance to win if you're interested in attending. So I wanted to provide that to you as well. So with DESEs, we are on the final stages of revision for a new English Learners with Disability document. This is pretty much the same document that we had before, but it's been updated with new special ed policy and some new links so that it's up to date and ready for you. And that should be getting published within the next month. And then the Summer Literacy Summit is going to be happening in July, and watch the DESE website for that information. If you're interested in attending, it will be in Columbia at the Stony Creek Inn and Convention Center. And then Elevate is coming in June. And so there's information on how you can register here. We're going to have Kate Kinsella and Juliana Uturbe. I don't know if I probably butchered her name, but they will be here. Great speakers, both of them. So look forward to that. And click off the screen. Also, I wanted to let you know that Letters is now going to be open and available to all K-5 teachers. So if you, as an EL teacher, would like to join a cohort, it will be paid for by the state of Missouri if your school district allows you to attend. But it is now going to be open to all K-5 educators. So another opportunity for you if you're interested. And these links are active if you want more information. On the DESE calendar, again, that's the link to our calendar on the curriculum page. And we try to keep it update with things that are going on. And then this is the link to the ELD webpage where I post things that are relevant and going on as well. So you can check both of those. And then, as I said, Elevate's coming up too. All right, so into the meat of the meeting today. These are just some tips and ideas, things that I've used in the past that I wanted to pass along and share with you today. These are some experiences in language that I have found work. So this, again, there's my motto, keep it simple, make it fun, or Kismet, that I got from the college instructor many, many years ago. So everything that we do in class, I try to keep it simple for my students, but also make it fun so that they're involved and so that they are active participants. So I want to send you home or end our session today with some resources you can use right away or at the beginning of next school year, some links to extra things that you might be able to use, and then some opportunities for collaboration with other ELD teachers across our state. So here are some essential questions that reflective practitioners use. The first thing, I think I say this every time, you need to know your students. You need to know who they are. What do they like? Where did they come from? What's their culture? Find out as much as you can about your students to start. And then what are your goals and objectives that you have for those students? Looking at your lesson, what's going to be challenging for those English learners? So these are questions that I would take when I sat down with a classroom teacher. and go over with them so that we together can work on something that will work for instruction. So the fourth one, what instructional strategies can I use to allow your ELs to participate in the classroom in the activities that are going on? And how am I going to assess them to make sure that they are learning what we're presenting? And what evidence can we use for that learning? How do we drive instruction? How do we foster the cooperation and collaboration where they're talking, where they're involved? How can we structure PD for classroom teachers? And how can we inform the accountability for ELs? What kind of document is going to travel with them over time? Those are all things to keep into consideration. And I found this the other day, excuse me, that I thought was really a great visual for what is culture. So when we're talking about our English learners, a lot is what we observe, and that's what all we see about them, but there's a lot just below the surface and some that's not visible, like eye contact for one, and how they converse. There's some cultures that they go all the way around a topic before they actually get to the topic, but that's the way that they're taught to interact. Also, facial expressions and hand gestures are all things that we need to learn about the culture. And then all of these things that are not visible, like modesty, keeping parts of our body covered, things we talk about and don't talk about when we're with students and their parents. So those are things to take them into consideration when you're getting to know your students as well. All right, so our purpose in working with them should be to integrate them, the students who don't have English as their native language, into participation in a classroom through development of vocabulary, comprehension, oral communication. Oral communication is the big one. And using our new WIDA standards helps us to do all of that, because they're based on integrating with the classroom so that we're all working together for the benefit of these students, for all of our students. Okay. So I don't know if you've seen this video before. This is one of Carol Salva's. I wanted to play it. If we ask a student, what's helpful to you? Sometimes they'll give you an honest answer. And I love this student's answer. So hopefully you can hear what he says. I can get it to play here. There we go. Well, for some reason, there we go.
It's also very helpful is when Miss Salva used her hands to help us. For example, when she sees she's doing something like this, or imaginary, or eyes, or mouth. So that helped me because I'm looking at her and I'm listening to her. So I can remember that maybe after so many days, I don't remember the word, but I remember what she does, so I remember the word.
Ah, okay. So when I use gestures, like come in, sit down. What about when we do the social contract? Listen to Miss Salva. What does that look like?
Like listen to Miss Salva.
Right.
Because, for example, in biology, it's very hard to understand because I don't have that in biology. She used tag, and I don't know most of the words that she used. So I'm used to listening to her, but I don't understand because I don't know the words.
Right.
So I have to learn the words, and after that, I can understand what
So
is she talking about.
You're having to go home at night, translate, try to figure it out, come back the next day. That's hard.
When you use a picture, it's very helpful because when I don't know the word and you only translate the word, I know the word in Spanish, but I forget the word in English. When I don't know a word in English and you use a picture, I don't need to figure out in Spanish. I can, okay, now that is in English.
Right.
That is in English.
You got it. You got it, because there's a picture in the English where everybody gets it.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially in things like math and biology and science, we need images when we teach, because everybody, it's new for everybody in the room. Mitosis, but that's new for everybody. So visuals are very important.
That's so much helpful that only translate.
Than just translating, using your translator. It's watching the teacher slow down and use pictures and gestures. Those are
Okay, so those are things we all know, that using gestures and using pictures are very beneficial, and helping them with the vocabulary, not just giving them the word in translation already for them, but giving them a picture and giving them the English words so that they can learn. Victoria did a really good job of sharing that with us at our last conference, of just giving that, how true that is. We can't just give them the words and give them the translations. We have to help them understand the meaning and make those associations. So taking the word right from a student. And then this is something I learned several years ago. Karen Nemeth, she works primarily with younger students, but she has what's called the castle approach, and I think it's very effective with our students. She says, first, choose keywords, adapt all areas of your classroom, select samples, supplies, and other stuff, give talking time, link the learning to real life, enact, emote, and engage with your students. And those are all things that I try to carry out in my lessons every year. So that I have that castle list on my lesson planning page that I refer to, and tried to make sure I followed all of those things each time. So let's get excited and make some things. That's how students learn, is by doing. It's the whole heart of what they look forward to, is getting involved, doing something, using their hands, creating something to show what they're thinking, because they don't always have those words. So how can they show us that they're understanding and what they know? And we can help them with that. Because if we just tell them, they're forgetting. If we teach them, they'll remember, maybe, but if we involve them, then they learn. I love that quote from Ben Franklin. All right, so making stuff. So some of my favorite things were capturing pictures in the classroom. And I've added a few things here that I used every year. One, I have this huge file of photo writing prompts. I click it here. You see it in the corner. So there are 412 different pictures, and they all have some sort of writing prompt on them. Some of them are a little more complex, some of them are easy. But we would start our day with my older students, especially, with some picture, and we would just tell, what is it about? So there are 412 of these. You can pick and choose which one you'd like. I like this one. If you wake up in a world where all of your childhood pictures come to life, what would it be like? So that would be kind of scary for this one. Anyway, those are there and available for you. The 4-picture word game is a lot of fun for students. You give them 4 pictures and they all have one word in common, and you have to figure out what that one word is. The kids loved that one. And the picture word induction model, and we'll talk about that again some more in a little bit. So if I didn't have a picture, sometimes we would make a picture, make a drawing, an illustration, a diagram. And there are some tools that you can use for that, like Doodle Buddy or Pic Collage. And we use Google Earth a lot, and mapped out, like, where are we going? Where are we from? Where did this story take place? And you can print out the map and pinpoint, or use it virtually, or put it up on your screen and display it, and pinpoint the path that the story takes, or the path that someone you know is making when they're taking a trip somewhere. It was very impactful for some of the students. They also always love comics. So you can make a comic strip or an advertisement using things like Telegami or Pixton. Those, they don't have it anymore. Your little characters like on my first screen, they don't make the stories anymore, but you can still use those characters of yourself to tell stories with. And then you can make narrated screencasts using something like Viddle or Educreations or Shadow Puppets or Explain Everything. We did those a lot. I've used all of those with my students. They all are fairly simple. And you can also make videos. We used iMovie on our iPads, or you can make a voice only. We use Vocaroo to do that. So those are options as well. So make something with your students. And then after you've made it, share it. One thing that we did for several years was our own blog. And if you click on this link, it will take you to my classroom blog. It used to be called Kid Blog, but now it's called Fan School. But this was our page. Can you hear our roar? We were the Wildcats. And these are some of the posts by my students. The lesson that I'm going to kind of walk you through today was on weather. And I love this one from Sean. He said, I don't like snow because it makes me freeze, but I did learn about snowflakes. They come in different sizes. They start in the clouds because there's a little speck of something that blows up there. Water sticks to the speck. The speck comes out of a cloud, turns into a snowflake. Snowflakes come in different shapes. There's one called a plate, one's a crystal, and then there are columns. Snowflakes are cool, but I still don't like snow. So this was a student who started the school year and knew very little English, but just because I got him writing and I provided him with the words, he was able by about this time to talk about things like snowflakes. And it was just because I got him involved and got them interested in doing something. So do something like blogging with your students. You can create one using a tool like Fan Tool. You can use Google's Blogger app, and I put a link here and an example of what that could look like. Make a QR code that leads people to your blog or your class page. Let others read it and give comments. The only thing you have to take into consideration are your district's permissions on sharing information, but my students would only use their first name. We didn't share it outside of a controlled group. We had a ELD class in another building in our district, and the students would comment and send messages, and it was all teacher controlled. So know your limits, know what's allowable, but allow students to have conversations that are valuable and free for them to do. Click off the screen again. All right, so another thing, you could use Google Drive for the same thing to create kind of like a blog. This is an example of that. And it also has links to other things that I did before. So you can create this main page, and when you click one of the buttons on the side, it could take you to the student's page or to other information, kind of like a choose your own board of types. But each one of those could be a different student's certain page within a Google document. So you can do things like that as well. All right. So there's that. And then, as I said, put it on display, put up your QR codes, put up a tiny URL at parent meetings or things so the parents can go in and look at what the students have written. They could go in and watch a short video. They could see your collage of pictures, but share it. So let the students be proud, because students like to have their things seen. My students always loved to have someone look at what they've created, and they took more pride in creating it that way. But here's my big tip for you. Start small. Start with just one or two things. Like you might do pic collage for several months and pair it with QR codes. Make your text and photo collage of your top nonfiction books and share it. Share the QR code. Make a collage about whatever you're studying in class and put your pictures in the hall, and then record the students talking about it. Put the QR code on the picture so others can come and scan it and listen to the students explaining what they did. Use that one or two things that you're working on that you've learned how to do and you've gotten good at using over and over for different things, and keep using that until the kids are really comfortable. And when they're really comfortable, add one more thing on. They're able and capable to use all of these tools. And again, as I just said, when they're ready, move on. And when they're familiar, add something new. Technology is something that they need to know more about. That's where we're going. So why not make them familiar with them? And they are able to do this. Again, something from Karen Namath that I will never forget. She said, always look for pathways and connections. So if you're reading a story about a frog, then do a jumping game or fold origami frogs or watch a frog video. Don't read about frogs and then do a puzzle with trucks. Okay, so try to keep all of your day to where things kind of flow together. If you're learning about boats, do paper boats. Talk about in math your word stories about boats so that students can make those connections and that it all kind of flows together. And they're not having to learn different vocabulary for every lesson at the elementary level, of course, is what I'm talking there. But it will work in the upper grades as well. So if you're talking about one subject, let that flow over into some of the other subjects. No need to learn different vocabulary all throughout the day if we can make it all cohesive and interconnected. All right. And as you explore, ask more questions. Are they able to do this independently? Is this skill that I've just taught them something they can do? Is my classroom safe? Does it allow them to take risks? Does it allow collaboration? And again, making sure that we remember student privacy and ensure compliance with all the school's rules. Because this can really be life-changing. Some of my students went from being shy and withdrawn to being interactive and ready to go into the classroom and share what they learned in my class with the rest of their class. And if we followed along with the classroom teachers and what they were doing, when it came time to discuss it in class, they had a voice. They were able to participate. They were able to be involved in the discussion and add to it sometimes, because sometimes we learn things that they didn't learn in class and they were able to contribute more information. So get them involved, let them shine, and let them share. All right, so creating standards-based lessons. We've been talking all along. Back in 2021, we talked about the WIDA standards and how we could integrate them. So look at your WIDA standards, look at your content standards, and decide what's challenging to your students. Choose one subject area at a time to work on with your English learners is always the best way to start. And once you get a good feel for that or work with that teacher in that area, then you can add on a little bit later. Because as EL teachers, we can't learn everything. So just focus on one area at a time. And then after you've gotten that down and the teacher feels comfortable with how you're doing things, then you can add on more. All right, so we start with concept introduction. We look for illustrations, graphics, and descriptions and real world objects. And then we're trying to make meaningful comprehension of those targeted concepts with our students. One way of doing that is scaffolding. We talk about that in every workshop. Make sure that when you scaffold, you're looking at all 4 language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So when you're doing the I do, we do, you do, make sure you're incorporating all 4 of those into those lessons. And I've given you some examples. Like for listening, here are some things for I do, for we do, and for you do. Active listening, I love this sentence here. Active listening gets the students involved in the lesson. Passive listening does not equal learning. So if they're just sitting there listening to you and it has no meaning, they're not learning from it. They may be involved, they may be paying attention, but they're not learning. So find ways to get them involved and learning. And I love this. I bet you these students will remember this the whole life. I remember it every time I see it. So this is active listening and participation. So for one, song always makes it better. One of this, when we went to a conference last year, we got in a taxi ride with a student. Our driver has said he was a student, he was an English language learner, and the thing that stuck with him the most, he said, was songs and rhymes and chants. So those students acted it out. They had the song. I bet you they can tell you what a turn, a slide, and a flip would be in math forever. Okay, so speaking, these are some I do, we do, you do, some for speaking. And these all come from the I just left my brain. A whole list of activities that I can share with you, or I have shared with you later. Okay, so inside outside circle is really good for speaking. I'm not going to show the video. For reading, there are some more I can, or I do, you do, we do. And then partner reader reading is one for reading, and then writing as well. And guided notes is really good for writing. It helps your students to focus and be on target with what they're supposed to be learning. So this gives you examples and how to use them. So if I were doing a lesson in science about the weather, these might be the standards that I'm working on. So I have to decide, what is it that I am learning about? I just said, share and observe local weather conditions, identify patterns represented in tables and graphs, and that tell the expected weather in a particular season. So those are some things I might need to know. So what am I going to be doing? I'm going to be identifying and organizing major concepts about the weather. I'm classifying and labeling. The next thing that you have to do is decide which key language use is going to do those things. Are you going to be narrating? Are you going to be informing? Are you going to be explaining or arguing? Probably it's going to be mostly inform or explain. And then you can go back to your WIDA standards and look at what areas, what emphasis you put on inform and explain from our standards. So the question that I like to ask is, what's going to be challenging about the assignment for the students? Looking at the standards, looking at the expectations for that lesson. What's going to challenge them? What's going to be hard for them? And be specific. Identify those concrete things, the language, the literacy, or even cultural sometimes, that is a challenge in that assignment. And what things or what scaffolds can I put in place to address those challenges? When you're doing this as teachers, it helps you develop your assessment tool. It helps you plan the experiences you're going to give for your students, and it helps to expand the students' understanding of what you're teaching. And for the students, it helps them organize the information, develops their personal information for studying, gives them flexible thinking, and helps break it down in manageable pieces, which also allows them to go further with the information. All right, so we're going to look at building this lesson. A lot of times I started out with picture word induction model. So if I were teaching about weather, I might show them a picture like this and just ask them, what do you see in the picture? Either one, if it's winter or spring, what do you see in these pictures that you can tell me? What words? And it doesn't have to be English, just what do you see? And there are 2 links here that take you to some activities that have to do with picture word induction model. I have one that Tracy shared with me that is excellent, but I don't have permission to share it, or I would have shared that one as well. It's very well done. Maybe she'll share it with you later.
Yeah, you can share it. I'll see if I can find it and put it in there.
Okay, that would be great.
Okay.
It's a wonderful link. It's a wonderful, and I started to share that. I thought, I better ask you first. So what we're working on with this a lot of times is the vocabulary that we're making meaning, because if you have that picture and you're tying the word, as that student said earlier, picture word inductive model is a great way to do that. And the best way to teach vocabulary is making it fun and engaging. So if they're looking at a picture, a lot of times I put the picture at the beginning of the week and I didn't even tell them what we're going to be talking about. And they would go out of my class and come back the next day and say, oh, I have a new word for the picture, and they'd add it to it, and we'd just add to it until we were ready for the lesson. I also included this link if you're not familiar with the Steinhardt bilingual glossary with cognates. It's a wonderful resource just as a dictionary. So I wanted to share that with you too. That's there. And then this is something I used a lot. So we used it from the very beginning of the school year. My students were familiar with it. And I would just say, go get a dot sheet. Let's find out what we know. And so DOT stands for, the D is determine what you know. That's kind of like building the field. What do you know about this subject? So if we did our picture word induction model, they may already have those words and they put them on their dot chart, because those are the things they already knew. And again, it could be in Spanish or it could be in English. So that's your D. Then O is observe. So we would next observe things. We would watch a video, we'd read a story, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Then the T is for talk. So you talk to your peers and you write around that target vocabulary, make connections to other words in their chart. And then the S is to summarize at the end, and you're going to write something or do something with all of these words that you learned. So this is what a dot chart might look in the beginning, and this image is linked to a blank dot chart if you're interested in that. So when we talked about weather, this is from an actual lesson we did with my students. So if you're talking about weather, you can add all of these words, and you can see some are in Spanish and some are in English, which is fine. So that's what it might look for your students. And then we watch something. This is a great website that has text to speech. It reads the stories to them. It reads the information. It has little videos. So if you're learning about weather, there's a great place to look. So the students would watch that. And then we used iPads. So I used notes on my iPad and let the students write things down as they were reading or as they were listening. We also sometimes used Viddle, which allows them to draw pictures. So if they didn't know the words, they could draw a little picture. It has a pin and they could use their finger to draw pictures, and then they could save them as note taking. So those are 2 options. And then after they've read or listened or whatever they did, they go back to their chart again and add to it and make some connections. So like viento, if they found out, oh, that's wind, they have the English word now, so they know what it means. And then the rain, and they could maybe move it down into the R's, and we add rainbow. So they add some words that they've gathered. They can add them in the side, like if it's a group of words, and then make connections. You can see how we've drawn arrows. And then you just keep doing this process. Mystery Science is another great site that I love. I think they charge for it now, but there's still some components of it that are free. So a lot of times we use Mystery Science as part of our lesson. It has videos and activities in with it as well. So we do some more, we'd add some more to our notes. We could watch videos, add some more to our notes. Sometimes I would put a QR code on different tables around the room, and the kids would scan the QR code and listen to a short video and then take notes and then go to a different desk around the room, make it interactive and get them moving. Felt like they were doing something fun. So we did that sometimes. Place that video in Google or use Explain Everything or Symbaloo. Find your videos and put them someplace and then give the students the link. They can watch them while they're in your classroom. They can watch them when they're out of the classroom if they're really interested. But get them watching and get them involved. Another thing for videos I love is Edpuzzle. And I shared a link to a lesson that we did on weather. What Edpuzzle does is you use like a YouTube video or one you create, and then it has stops every so often where it has a built-in question, and they can be auditory where they're listening to the question and then they respond, or they could be written, or it could be a definition or a translation that you give in certain sections. So it'll have stopping points that you add information you want to have the students either answer or gain from that stopping point. And I included a link of how Edpuzzle works and some examples there for you. All right, so this is what, I need to put it from hang on a minute. I want to animate this for you. If I can get the screen to move for me. I don't know why I have this little box up here that's blocking my presentation. Slide. I want it to present, but it's under this box. Close it. There we go. Okay. So this is what their page might look like after they've done all these things and seen them. They've watched the videos, they've read stories. This is what their page looked like. But then when they get with their partners and talk about it, they start making connections. Like they're saying, these are all types of clouds, and they draw an arrow. This is all talking about precipitation. So rain is precipitation, snow is precipitation, ice, and it comes from clouds. So those are all interrelated. And then they might want to talk about the water cycle that they've learned about it. It starts with the sun, it gets hot, things evaporate, it goes into the clouds, and then it rains, and then it goes back to the sun again. So students start making those connections. And then another thing that we did a lot of times is we would take our words and put them into categories, like a list of different kinds of clouds, or the water cycle information, or words that were pertaining to weather. I could have put wind or rain and snow over here in the water cycle as well. And then this is something that we also use. I talked about shadow puppets and Viddle. So I let the students use shadow puppets. I think that's what this one was created with. Yes. And so we looked
These are cumulus
at
clouds.
clouds.
And so are these.
And so it just gives you a
These
slideshow that
puppets
you can narrate.
On a
So that's shadow puppets. And the students made all kinds of things like that. Flipgrid is another one that you can use in this very similar way. You give them a question. I think Flipgrid is now called Flip. But you can go on and have a question. The students go log on and respond. They could show things because they're on video. It gets them familiar with speaking. It's interactive. They can make comments on each other's videos. So it's another way to get them involved with the lesson. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. And then you can go old school as well. There are writing prompts, so if they're able to write, they could write about each kind of cloud. We went out and drew in our journals what different clouds looked like. We made this little flip book of what are clouds, and then drew pictures of the different kinds of cloud. And then the last one was my favorite cloud. And then this is a writing prompt that I used many, many times in my classroom. So have, can, and are were our categories. And so when we were listing all of those words, and I would say, okay, let's talk about clouds. What do clouds have? And we'd make a list of words. What can clouds do? And we'd make a list of words. And then what can you say? Clouds are what? What do they look like? What's a describing word? And they'd list all the words for that. And then later, when we go to write about the clouds, they use these words. So they'd say, clouds can snow. Clouds can sleet and rain. Clouds can climb high in the sky. Clouds have different shapes. Clouds have different types. Clouds have water in them. Some clouds are white and fluffy. Other clouds are dark. So you have the sentences already there for you. You just have to make those connections. And so this really got my students to where they were writing paragraphs, where they were writing full sentences, because I gave them kind of like a frame, only it's not a frame. I just gave them the words and the order. And we use this for just about everything that we wrote about in the beginning until they were more comfortable and able to do it on their own. But that visual was very helpful to them. This is another thing we did later in the year that the students really loved, my animated dictionary. If you click on it, it'll give you an example. These are some of the ones my students made after I showed them how. And it's very simple. And I gave the instructions on that other page. So the vocabulary that you're using, so we have eat and dance and run, yawn. Sleep was a hard one to find a picture that you could figure out what it was talking about. And rodeos, a lot of my students had never been to a rodeo. So this kind of gives you an idea of what a rodeo was. And a volcano, we talked about volcanoes in science. So of course we had to make one about the volcano. And then my older kids were talking about biomes. So we made one that talked about the ecosystem and all the different biomes. And so they created these for their lesson. Really cool activity. But on one of the previous pages, the one that I gave you the example that you could use Google for a blog, it tells you how to make this. So if you're interested in that. And then of course we know Kahoot, you can use that as an assessment as well. And Quizlet Live, I actually like better than Kahoot because it's more interactive, and you could have teams, you can do it virtually. It's a lot of fun. It has all kinds of ways to prepare for the quiz together for practice. They have little games and things that you play before you do Quizlet Live with the students. Oops, and I clicked on that. Get out of that. All right. Another thing that we used a lot was this website called Croquet. It's a 30-second audio clip. So if I want, a lot of times when I get them started talking, they didn't want to stop. And so I needed to put a limit on it. So this is a 30-second audio clip. It has to be precise. They have to tell like the main idea, and they only get 30 seconds to do it. Okay, so we use Croquet. And if I wanted them to talk longer, I would use this site called Vocaroo. And it lets you talk, oh, I don't know, I think 5 minutes was how long, the longest that we ever did one. And we told a whole story on Vocaroo. You click to record, you don't have to sign in, you don't have to have an account after you finish recording. You have to be very careful and click and copy the link that appears down at the bottom afterwards, because they don't save it, you don't sign in, but you have to click the link and it'll either give you a QR code or a link that you can copy and paste somewhere else. And what we use these for towards the end of the year, I made a QR code. So like Crooked here, I put the link in a QR code maker. I used QR stuff, which was free. And then our librarian let us put the QR codes on the students' favorite books. And they told everyone what they liked about the book without giving it away. So we talked about you can't make them not want to read it, but give them just enough so that they want to read that book. And so all of the students got to put one of these on one of their favorite books, and they loved it and they were so proud. And the librarian really helped them out by allowing them to do this. And so they were wanting to do more. They wanted to make more of these, to put them on more books, and they wanted to read more books so they could talk more about them. So it got them involved and got them engaged and got them interested. So here's a sample lesson plan from when I taught the whole unit on weather from kindergarten to, I think it was 4th or 5th grade, that you're welcome to take a look at how I structured it. Here are some additional sites for weather if you're interested in doing a unit on the weather. And then this is a best practices checklist and resources that I found that I think is very helpful. So kind of goes over everything we've said. First, you want to activate your prior knowledge. It gives you a checklist of ideas, a few more resources, provide a print-rich environment, a checklist, some more resources, engage students hands-on learning so that they're physically involved. There's a checklist and resources. Your vocabulary, more information, frequent checks for understanding, things to keep in mind when you're assessing whether they're learning or not. And this is really great for our newcomers and ESL students. So some ideas and some resources there. How you can do cooperative groups with your students, how you can build in a little bit of the native language into the classroom learning, and ways to weave language and content together, and then some resources for visuals. So a really nice resource that I wanted to share with you. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Symbaloo. I used to use it all the time, but since I haven't been in the classroom, I haven't been back to it. But this is my Symbaloo page from, oh my goodness, probably 10 years of collecting. So there are things for making foldables, lap books. There's some writing pages. There are reading pages, listening, speaking. There are all kinds of resources that link you to other people that you should follow. And when preparing for this, I went back and looked through some of them. Some of the links had expired and were no longer active, but I tried to update as many pages as I could. But you're welcome to go in and look at the resources that are there. It's a great place to store things and keep things together and find other things that other people have put together. So that's there. And then I have another big long list here of other resources. If you're not, I've spoken about Read and Write for Google many times. I believe it's still free for teachers, but it's a great resource. And this link tells you all about it. That translation page that I've shared many times where you type in a word in English and it'll translate it to several different languages. This tells you how to make that. These are some tools from Jeff Zweers, some RTI. The teacher toolkit was where many of the videos that were shared in some of the previous slides came from. Some writing activities, and then Pinterest is great for finding things. It's like, why pay for it from Teachers Pay Teachers when you can go on Pinterest and get it free? So if you're looking for something, don't rule that out as an option. There are some links to some things that are ESL specific that I have gotten from there. And then Wakelet, if you're not familiar with that, there's a Wakelet that I made. And then this is a Wakelet search where I found English language learner pages within Wakelet that you can go and look at. Padlet's a little bit harder to search and find things for. But here is a Padlet that I put together that's got lots of links. And then OER Commons, many people aren't aware of that tool as well. It is Creative Commons where you don't have to pay for anything. There are links to public access. And we have a Missouri English language learner page that we could use to put like letters that your district uses that you want to share in different languages, so that other people don't have to try to create that. So it could be a common area that we could all go to that kind of leads into the next part about collaborating. So we could collaborate through those, any of these, Wakelet, Padlet, or even Symbaloo. There are ways for us to collaborate and share information and share tools. And then we have, I have a Twitter page with lots of links for English learners from way back when. That's available. Mel has a Twitter page that I try to get on every so often and update. We have a Facebook page. I put a lot of things from Edmodo into this LinkedIn page, and you can access them there. And you can email me anytime. I'm always available to answer questions or help out with any kind of lesson that you'd like. And then when it comes to blogging, for many years, oh gosh, almost 10 years, I had a blog for my classroom. And I have all kinds of things about teaching ESL that I included there, and a little bit of perspective of why I do what I do. So if you're interested in that, that's there as well. And as always, we have our 5 mil consultants and specialists that are more than willing and able to help you with anything that you need. And they're full of ideas as well and ready to help you. And that's where I am going to stop talking. So I gave you a lot today, something a little bit different. So I'm going to stop and let you ask any questions you might have today. Now I am going to copy. Oops. No, I thought I was going to copy.
Okay, Kimmy,
Yes.
somebody noticed that the slides on the note taker bring you back to the March slides. So you probably need to just
I didn't
update
change the
those when you have time.
slides link. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
I'll get
Just-
that. Thank
yeah.
you.
no problem.
Yeah. So I'm gonna escape this, stop sharing. And
Thanks, Cammy. I gotta run, but I
Oh.
appreciate it.
hey, Rob, I didn't even know you were there. I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
there's the note taker again, if you missed that. And here is the link to the evaluation. If you have any questions, I'll hang on for a little bit.
I actually have a question, Kami. Or
Hey,
whoever.
Daisy.
Hey, we are updating our CSIP plan in our district.
Okay.
And the EL group is one of the student groups that we are focusing on for achievement and academic achievement. And so one of the things that I've noticed over the past few years is, in particular, our high school students, especially those that are SLIFE students. Since we're a smaller district, we don't have a lot of math options for them to get some of those foundational math skills. And oftentimes it's really difficult to even know what they know
Right.
as far as math goes. So I'm just curious if anybody uses like a math placement test, like when you do your English screening, your language screening. I mean, we can figure that part out, but as far as math placement, does anybody use a placement test? And if, preferably a free one.
Right. Well, I know I found one from a different state that I will dig out and share with you, but Rittner also created their own. So if I can give you some names of someone in Rittner that might be able to, they might be willing to share their example with you.
And we are an Ames Web district, so I could use Ames Web. It's just the problem with Ames Web is that, it's
It's a
trying to
little
get them on
fine.
ground level.
Yeah.
And then you have to like backtrack. So it would be
Right.
much easier if I could just figure out kind of, okay, maybe they only have basic second grade skills. That's
Uh-huh.
fine. That gives us a place to start. So
Chandra says they use Fast Math in Kansas City.
Fast Math. Is that free? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think so.
It's not, but we have a quick screener that we do with our newcomers when they come in. That just kind of gives us a really, we call it a quick and dirty, just like 4 or 5 things if they can do it. And then we give them further math testing, especially in the high school, to place them into Fast Math 1 or Fast Math 2 or Algebra 1.
Okay, and so your Fast Math, is that a class then that you have, that you offer
Yes.
for your
We
high
have
school?
we have 2 versions of Fast Math 1 and Fast Math 2. Fast Math 1 is basically just all of our foundational add, subtract, multiply, divide. And then when it comes to 2, it's more of the, what do I do with all of those foundational skills?
Right, how we apply them, right.
Yeah, because currently our offering is algebra. So we had a consumer math type class. We do offer a class, but it's mostly for our special education students. And so it's limited, as to what other students that can get into that class. So just trying to figure out some options perhaps as we look at that.
If you Google Fast Math, you can kind of see a little bit of what it's like.
Okay.
Julie Antil probably has some resources for you from summer school.
Yeah, I do have some resources that come through Texas when we did migrant summer school. And I just I have their resources from Project Smart, which was a math curriculum that but it's only available to educators that are doing the migrant students, but it does give you a really good idea that doesn't really do any the placement as much as instruction, how to start providing instruction that's more visual, and already has some of the sheltered instruction inside it, and some things like that that guide you towards how you can modify and accommodate for students. So, but I'll be happy to share that with you next time I see you. Daisy.
I wasn't sure if it had a screener with it or not.
No, not really. The way we placed the students was when they came into and came into summer school. We placed them according to what grade they had just started or completed, the grade that they completed. And then if we found that they were having a difficult time keeping up with, because everything was very visual. And so, but if they were still struggling with the content, then we were allowed to put them into a classroom in the grade level below. So we just kind of used that judgment as we went along, but we had pre and post test to show growth through that. We have that, but it does show you how to make your lessons more visual, and after every and to really focus in on your content and language objectives as you're teaching, and to have your students also show what they know as you finish the lesson. They did there were little notes that they themselves had to draw pictures or write about to take home to show what we did. And so, brought us right back to what did you learn? So really good instruction, not so much a placement test. So.
Well, we'll put that on the note taker, and maybe some others can add to give comments.
But Cammie, I think, the one time that I went to the meeting that you were not able to be at for the CCSSO.
Yes.
Anyway, one of the states actually had something in several languages that were very, very short placement math.
Yes. That's what I was gonna dig for. I
Is that
know
the one you
I
were
have it
thinking of?
somewhere. Yeah, so I'm
Okay,
gonna see if I can
I'll do
find
it.
it.
I'll do
yeah,
a
it's in the-
Google search. Maybe I can come across one, but
Yeah,
I thought I'd ask here first because you
Yeah.
guys
I
always.
think, yeah, I think that was Florida, but I'm not sure.
Okay,
I think it was Florida that had a placement kind of situation, test situation that they started out and there's a grid and the students did about 6 or 7 answered about 6 or 7 questions. And the first part of the grid was K1, and then you had 2, 3, and then you had 4, 5, and then it went on up, I believe, all the way up to high school. So
yeah. I
I'll try to
remember
find
seeing
it.
it.
Yeah, I'll try to
Yeah, I
find.
wonder if New York State would have something like that too. Seems like they have so many resources for newcomers.
Probably their New York
Might be a
Engaged
good
site.
place to look.
Mhm. But I'm sure we can fix you up with something between all of us. All right, any other questions or comments? Next time we'll kind of go over data and see where we're at and what I can report to you on what's going on with that. Hopefully we'll have some answers by next month. All right, just thank you, my friends. Thank you for being here. As always, I appreciate you. Everyone have a good end of your school year. All right, I'll talk to my ESL friends tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You doing okay?
Oh, yeah. Let me stop the recording.